Jess,
Chad.
when you hear the name Pee Wee Herman,
Uh-huh.
what do you immediately think of?
Ah!
Besides the personality and the voice, like if it's just an image in your head and not sound, what do you picture when you just him?
Yeah, his face.
Yeah.
With the red lips and the white makeup, the perfect hair, but usually being this is so close to my childhood and yours even more than mine.
Right.
I loved him. I know that. I think he was extremely important, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the reasons why.
We will, for sure. Well, at least I can only speak to me. I can't speak to...
Well, and I can only speak to me.
In the zeitgeist of things, why he was...
I don't give a shit about what the world thinks. I think that's not the point of this podcast.
No.
It's what you feel and I feel and Chucky when he's here.
Yes, when he's here.
So... And Mew, the one time she was on. And my mom, the one time she was on. Regardless, whoever is recording, that's the opinions that matter as far as I'm concerned. And Pee Wee Herman, I don't know, man. He was something special. He was perfectly childlike. And I mean that in his... He was very unaware of a lot of the world, right? The character, obviously, not Paul Rubin.
Yes.
He was perfectly innocent, but also childlike in the other sense, where he could be extremely cruel out of nowhere and not even mean to be. But it's just that no filter that I think is probably what connected with kids more than anything else.
Which again, the no filter thing, that is in and of itself very childlike.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes. It's that whole kids say the darndest things.
Right.
You know, that whole... So, I don't know. What do you think of?
I'll tell you exactly what I think when we get back from the theme song.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to our show about pop culture stuff. We keep watching and connected, but it's never enough. Talking with our friends about our favorite things. TV shows and movies and some random swearing. Hey! 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 This is the pretty, this is the little, this is the pretty little podcast.
Hello, all you pretty little people. This is the Pretty Little Podcast. I'm your host, Debbie Chad. With me is just Jess.
Hi, it's me. I'm here. It's true. What? Am I supposed to say something else?
Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
This is a character that really should irritate the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I should not like this character at all.
Right.
The overgrown man-child has to get my way, throw a tantrum type characters.
Very pouty, very whiny, very pesty at times. Yeah.
This type of character has been tried by other people.
Sure.
Was it Michael McDonald in Mad TV? Played that. Look what I can do.
Michael McDonald?
I believe that was the actor's name.
I don't know.
Anyways, that character irritated the fuck out of me.
I didn't watch Mad TV.
Martin Short with his Ed Grimley character.
Or
was another,
Clifford.
That too.
Oh, God. Thank you.
This type of character has been tried in the past, and for some reason, this is the only one that doesn't piss me off or annoy me.
Well, is it because you were very much a child when you met him?
May be, but look, for all of you listening out there,
hi guys.
Full disclosure here, Pee-wee's Playhouse was one of the things in my childhood that I probably loved the most, aside from like Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And Pee-wee's Playhouse, for me, predated my love of Ninja Turtles.
Well, like I said, it's very special to you.
They kind of ran consecutively.
Yeah.
And as I got a little older, Ninja Turtles more took over before they went away.
Right.
But Pee-wee's Playhouse is one of those things that unlike a Ninja Turtles, right? So Pee-wee's Playhouse came on Saturday mornings.
Right.
You had to be home Saturday morning to watch this. Ninja Turtles not only was a Saturday morning cartoon, but also they ran it after school.
Mm-hmm.
Pee-wee's Playhouse was not ran after school, to my knowledge. It was not.
At least not
syndication.
around here.
Right.
In
so
the
you
northern
had to catch
Texas
it on Saturday.
area.
It was like a special event thing. It happened only on Saturday.
Right.
So when I was a kid, before we could do anything that day, I had to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Like your whole household understood.
If I did not get to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse before we went somewhere, I was a shit to deal with the rest of the fucking day.
I cannot imagine you being a shit to deal with. Oh my goodness.
There is something
What would that be like?
about this show. And it's not only that, yes, at the heart of what it is, it's a kid show.
Right.
But as you look at this, you know, as the decades have gone on, I've gotten older. My love for the show hasn't diminished. I still love this show. I mean, I've watched it more times as an adult than I have as a kid, probably.
Well, I'm sure, yeah.
And it's, to me now, become more of it is art.
Yes, it's conceptual art.
I don't even think
It's
about it as
performance
a
art.
show.
100%.
And it has nothing to do with the characters necessarily. It is the set design, the artwork that is littering the set, you might as well get into that. The sets were created by Wayne White, who is an artist. Mm-hmm. I love his artwork. He's probably most well known for Pee-wee's Playhouse set design, but he also worked on Shining Time Station. He worked on the Weird Al Show. He worked on Beekman's World. So there's a lot of things in our childhood that he's like had a hand in.
I love me some Beekman's World.
Yeah, Beekman's World's great. But, you know, aside from that, he is a fine artist. He also just released an album with his band. He's apparently making music now, too.
Hell
which
yeah.
It's
Go on
kind
then,
of
Wayne
like
White.
It's kind of like if the Residents were a country band. So it's not really for me, but I like that he's still doing things.
That broke my brain. I'm trying to make that into a thing.
It is definitely interesting. It's experimental country folk.
Well, good for them.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm sure it has its fans. It's just not really for me. I much prefer his artwork to his music, but you know, this man has been responsible for giving us a setting to a lot of things in our childhood that we loved.
Right.
He's worked on other things too. Nothing off the top of my head that I can think of. He has a website to go to if you want to see all his all the set design sketches and things. It's pretty interesting. WayneWhite.com. Maybe WayneWhiteArt.com. I don't know. Just Google it. He's out there. But the show itself has a very distinctive look that I have not, even to this day, really seen in another kid's show. This Playhouse looks like John Waters' actual house. What I imagine it to be, you know, right? This is John Waters' bedroom.
Oh no!
The show.
I don't want to think. I love John Waters. I don't want to think about his bedroom.
None of this should work, right? It's just it's a bunch of colorful kooky crap all over.
It's like the inside of a child's mind,
right? Or like a roadside museum.
We all fucking wished we could have.
Yes.
Just every random bit of bullshit that I love plastered everywhere. Tons of friends to talk to, very few of which are human, and endless fun, and truly
honestly,
innocent fun.
To this day, I'd prefer.
Yeah.
I want human friends. I want Conky.
Yeah. I know you want. You would replace me with Conky in a half a second. I'm well aware. I understand.
Know how quick I would disown anybody in my life.
No, I am fully
to spend
aware.
the day with Conky.
I know.
Conky is like probably my favorite character of anything ever.
I know. Well, I bought you that little Conky.
I have the Conky action figure, the original action figure.
Years ago, I bought him for you because I know how much you love him.
He's still in the package, and I'm never taking him out.
Well,
he is in
that's
very
sad.
good shape.
I bought him for you because you loved him.
Yeah, and I can still love him in the package.
Well, all right,
but yeah, it's still the only Pee-wee's Playhouse toy I ever had.
Right.
Like now and as a kid, that was the only one I had, but that one's long gone. And yeah, every Saturday morning I would sit down with cereal and I would have my Conky next to me and I would watch Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Little baby Chad with his Conky next to him.
And it was a good time. It really was.
And God forbid your mother try and get you to move before it was over.
It wasn't going to happen.
It was less than a good time.
Like if you've ever seen like the worst toddler throw a tantrum in Walmart.
What I will say
that was me if you ever removed me from
you
Pee-wee's
and I
Playhouse.
have been together for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I am well aware what it is like trying to get you to do something if you don't want to do it. I know better.
Oh, it was way worse when I was a kid.
Oh, Well, yeah, because I just won't even. I'm like, I'm not even going to bring that up. I already know. Nah. Just give the boy his conky.
Now, there are a lot of elements to the show and why it works so well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you think of like a classic kids TV show, let's take like a Captain Kangaroo or a Howdy Doody, which
I didn't
to be fair, did influence Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, sure.
You know, at least to
I
some
don't really
degree.
know either very well. My mom was a big fan of Captain Kangaroo.
But you look at something like that. Like back then, even when Pee-wee's Playhouse was new, when I was a kid, if you had showed me Captain Kangaroo or Howdy Doody, I would have thought it was lame as hell.
I would have been very bored probably. Because I wasn't of that era.
Right.
Right.
But you look at Pee-wee's Playhouse, which, you know, went off the air at this point, like 30 plus years ago, 35 years.
Yeah, it ran from 1986 to 1990.
Even with that amount of time that has passed now,
35 years.
This show, it does not feel lame, even though it is a kid's show. And maybe it's because of all the like sexual innuendos and stuff that went over kids' heads, which we will get into.
Yeah.
But there's just something about this that, like, you know, it's going to have that lasting appeal. Whereas if you stuck a kid today in front of Howdy Doody, they're going to get up and immediately do something else.
Sure.
If you put them in front of Pee-wee's Playhouse, they're probably going to sit there and watch.
Well, it's like we've touched on various other podcast episodes. This is something that is very much out of time, right? Like the characters of Pee-wee, Miss Yvonne, Cowboy Curtis, Reba, like all these different people, they could exist in many different decades because Puppet Land is its own thing.
Right.
They're not using hip lingo. They're not dressing like the kids were. You know, they're not trying to use whatever that is to connect with the kids of today. They were just doing their own thing. It was extremely original. And, you know, it's beginning.
Original to the point where it's just never been duplicated. I don't think anybody's ever tried. Maybe Nickelodeon did something like this at some point. And to be fair, I don't really know what kid shows are out there
on
now.
Some stuff kind of like that, probably an inspiration. But I mean, we watched the 2-part documentary that's on HBO Max right now.
Yeah, and we will be referencing that, I'm sure, throughout this episode,
which is really good. You guys should go watch it.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of context for the show, its beginnings.
Yeah, but Paul Rubens talked about how he was a collector of memories of things. Everything he had loved throughout his childhood, he brought, and he didn't create Pee-wee's Playhouse by himself, obviously.
Right.
But it was this sense of collecting everything I have loved in all these different aspects, all these different environments and groups of people that he came to know and love, and putting it together in a truly unique way for kids.
Right. And I mean, Paul Rubens is like, his story is one of those, like, if a celebrity was ever meant to be.
He was determined to be. He would be.
Right.
End of story.
And
I mean,
this is the type of celebrity that I actually really appreciate, because for all that he was out there, and he was out there, I mean, in the 80s, early 90s, I mean, Pee-wee was a big deal.
Oh, for sure.
And, you know, the fact that he was able to kind of let the character take over, and they mentioned that in the documentary too.
He purposefully did that. He wanted Pee-wee Herman to be the name and not Paul Rubens.
But he managed to keep his personal life personal.
Yeah.
In ways that, like, celebrities just aren't, I don't know if they're not allowed to anymore, or if they just don't know how to, but we know way too much about celebrities these days, and it's really off-putting. It really is. But Paul Rubens is just one of those special kinds of celebrities that just kind of, you know, we're not going to go into it, but there was a scandal he was involved in the early 90s that kind of hindered his career.
Please just say my favorite thing, because it's the best. I will say one thing.
Go ahead.
It's the best response to any scandal ever. And it's because I remember it when I watched it. I was watching the MTV Movie Awards. And he came out on stage, and we won't talk about it anymore, but all he said was, heard any good jokes lately?
Yes.
And for those of us who were alive at the time, I fucking died. I already didn't give a shit, but my respect for him went through the fucking roof. I was like, that is how you deal with that.
It's one of those things where it's like the bounce back, right?
Yes.
I mean, bouncing back from something, especially being the host of a kids show of the time when, you know, the moral panic shit, post-moral panic and all this shit. And, you know, like parents worrying that their kids were going to be gay watching things on TV and all that
like
bullshit.
That. Get fucked.
That
is my stance. Get fucked. Shut the fuck up.
That could have ended a career real fast. And I understand.
Yes. And I know he was really hurt by it, and it was a whole thing. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Post scandal. Yeah. You know, he still managed to be one of those actors that was just like, he would show up occasionally.
And every time he would show up in, oh God, what movie was that? Fuck. It's the Johnny Depp movie about cocaine.
Blow.
Thank you. He showed up in that and I was like, oh.
Yeah,
immediately always
aside from Pee Wee Herman, Blow was probably my favorite thing he's done.
He was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. The movie.
Yes, he was in the Batman Returns movie. He was in Mystery Men.
He was the Penguin's dad.
Yeah, I mean, he still did things time to time.
Up throughout my
He was in a Cheech and Chong movie, but that was pre all that. But he just kind of happened to be one of those celebrities that just showed up here and there, you know, and you know, he was clearly beloved by people in the industry.
Yes, well, and just the regular people too. He had amazing reactions.
Right. And for you know, up until we watched this 2-part HBO documentary, which I highly recommend all of you go do.
Yes, very much so.
It's probably one of the best documentaries I've seen. It really kind of gave me this insight in a way that really validated the way that I felt about Pee Wee Herman in the first place. Yeah. Because I kind of always felt like he was this type of man.
Sure. Well, and yes, to speak a little bit about the documentary, it humanized him as Paul Reubens in a way that I didn't necessarily know, but he was exactly the type of person I always hoped he was. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
He has a lot of snark and he does have an ego, but there is a softness there and a gentleness at the same time. He covers it in prickles, but I don't know.
He definitely came across to me as like one of those celebrities too, like just off the top of my head, like a Keanu Reeves, right? Where if a kid were to walk up to him and have a conversation with him, he would get down on his level.
Well, he always said, like everything he did at the documentary, I won't go into it really, but it ends with him saying, I hope everybody, and I'm paraphrasing, I hope everybody understands everything I did was out of love. Everything came from a place of love and wanting to entertain. And I believe that wholeheartedly.
Yes. I don't believe that there was a point in the documentary where he came off as inauthentic.
No, even when it wasn't necessarily the most flattering. He was very self-aware. He knew exactly who he was.
Yes. And you know, was he perfect? No. From what I understand, he was a little difficult to work with in some cases.
I could see
because of the control freak aspect of things. But that's part of being a creator.
You see that in Pee Wee Herman, though, too. Again, it goes back to the innocence child versus, I know you are, but what am I?
Right, yes.
Like, turn like that and you're like, oh, you're kind of a shit sometimes. I mean, I still love you. But wow.
But aside from the man, Paul Reubens, for any of you who were too young to realize, you know, back in the day, you didn't know who Paul Reubens was.
No.
You knew who Pee Wee Herman was.
Yes. And that was intentionally done on his part.
And to me as a kid, like Pee Wee Herman was Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
He wasn't an actor. He wasn't a celebrity. He was just Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah.
And for all that, you know, I did like Pee Wee, he really wasn't the reason why I tuned in to Pee Wee's Playhouse. It was all the other kooky shit. Like Pee Wee was the vessel getting you to the Playhouse.
Right. And
inviting you into his world.
He moved you from room to room.
Right. He was just kind of there
and occasionally married his fruit salad. Sorry, go ahead.
Look, we have been steeped in Pee Wee Herman this entire week. Like we watched all of the episodes of Pee Wee's Playhouse. We watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Pee-wee's Big Adventure today. We watched the 2-part documentary series. We watched the original Pee Wee Herman show
from the Groundlings Theater. Yeah, like what became Pee-wee's Playhouse later on.
You know, I watched the Beauty is Embarrassing documentary years ago about Wayne White,
Yeah.
which also went into Pee-wee's Playhouse.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Years ago, they had put something up. I think it was on HBO or something, like a redo. Like
the Broadway show.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
we watched that like 2 or 3 years ago.
And that was wonderful. It was there. Going home again. You're like, oh, there's everybody.
Yeah, we also watched the more recent 2021, I believe, Netflix movie.
Yeah, like our love, and especially your love, I will admit, of Pee-wee is long-standing. This is not a recent, there's a documentary out. We should do an episode on this shit.
Because believe it or not, I mean, like Pee-wee is pretty hot right now. Not only with the HBO series, the documentary series that came out, but like Shout Factory just released the entire Pee-wee's Playhouse on Blu-ray for the first time in this amazing box set collection. And then, of course, the passing of Paul Rubens
in 2023
2 years ago, which still feels
how
real
has it been
new.
2 years already?
It feels weird living in a world without Pee-wee Herman or Paul Rubens. You know, I
did get slightly misty-eyed at the end of the documentary because I mean, it is
sad. It is
because and I will say, if you're going to watch the documentary, do know that he knew he was on borrowed time. He was on limited time when he did it. It's why I firmly believe it's a big reason why he did it.
He was secretly battling cancer
and had been for years,
and was toying with this idea of making a documentary.
And it was
then
very much
to do
it's now or never. I have to say my piece.
Right.
And the makers of the documentary did not know that until it was like much later.
Nope. And there's even recording of him the day before he died.
Yeah,
that's really kind of sad.
And
but
he's just filming animals.
All in all, I mean, the documentary is
it's
phenomenal.
So good, guys. It's so good. But
so,
oof.
Pee-wee's Playhouse. At least when I was a kid, this was a big deal. And it was a big deal in ways that really didn't make sense for the time, because like I mentioned, this was during the post-moral panic stuff.
Right.
This was the gay AIDS scare of the 80s type shit, right? This time period. And
86 through 90.
You really had to be careful Paul Rubens was, at very most bisexual.
Right.
At very least gay.
Right.
So
somewhere in there.
Right. So, obviously he wanted to put some of that into the art he was making.
Sure.
But when it came to that time period and being the host of a kids show, you really had to do it in a way that was going to be correct and work.
That wasn't going to raise any alarms.
If you were going to put it into your art, you had to do it in a way that went over heads.
Looking back now, I'm like, the fuck? But I'm looking at it through 2025.
To his credit, I mean, there's a lot of gay innuendos in here. There's a lot of sexual stuff in Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Homoerotic.
And I had friends that I would go to their house and like their parents were super Christian and they would still let us watch Pee-wee's Playhouse.
It was not a thing.
Right. It was not even on their radar as something that kids should not be watching.
And that is something he brings up in the documentary. He was like, yes, we did put some stuff in there, but it was intentionally like to go over the kids' heads. And if the kids knew what the fuck we were talking about, it was either the parents or something they got up at school.
Yeah.
Like, because I know when I watched it as a kid, I didn't, any of the subtext, there's so much shit as a kid. Fuck, I saw Wayne's World in theaters and most of it went over my head. My mom, I found out later, was sitting there like horrified next to me and I'm just like, do. I had no idea.
I mean, even movies today, like Pixar movies will still throw things in that'll go over a kid's head. Whatever. I don't care about all that. I'm just saying that
it's just more fun to look back now and go,
when this came out, parents were hyper aware.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking about 1990 is when The Simpsons were kind of really taking off. And I mean, I knew friends of mine whose parents just straight up wouldn't let their kids watch The Simpsons. I mean, parents were very aware
not a lot of my grandparents' house,
of what their children were watching. 100%. And like today with the internet and shit like that, where it's just kind of like a free for all.
Right.
But, You know, this was done in a way that, like, looking at it as an adult, I could be like, wow, that's blatantly homosexual.
It's wonderful. And all the drag queen stuff, all the God, it's so gay.
A lot of shirtless, greased up men.
So many shirtless buff men.
And Miss Yvonne, holy shit. Let's talk about Miss Yvonne for a second.
Because Charlie's mom from It's Always Sunny.
She is the horniest woman in Puppet Land. And
she's the most beautiful lady in Puppet Land. She deserves to be the horniest, right?
Good God, would somebody please throw this woman a bone? Anytime there is like one episode in particular that we watched this week, it's called Fire in the Playhouse. And,
there was a fire in her playhouse.
It sure was. They try to bake a loaf of bread. They accidentally start a fire in the kitchen.
Right.
For snack time. And a fireman comes to put the fire out. And Miss Yvonne's basement is flooded. And she is not letting this man leave without blowing him first.
Oh my God.
And she is all over this dude. And that was like, I guess that's the best example from like any one particular episode.
You're making it sound a lot more overt than it really was. She didn't hint at wanting to blow him. But no, you looking at me like that. I see you. I'm just saying it was still kid appropriate. And at the time we had no idea. But because college kids were watching this at the same time we were, and they were laughing their fucking asses off.
Yeah, and it's got one of my favorite lines in the entire series.
Well, go on then.
And it's, when the fireman is there and he's telling everybody, like, he's addressing the audience, right? And he's telling the kids, like, it's important to have smoke detectors in every room of your house. Be sure to replace the batteries and all that, blah, blah, blah. And Miss Yvonne just kind of teleports up to him. She's like, I have a smoke detector. It's in my bedroom above the bed. And it's the look on her face as she's delivering this line. And it's just like, how did parents allow kids to watch this back then?
Well, because technically she didn't say anything wrong.
No.
And you're the one with the dirty mind if you went there.
Hey, I sure do. I mean, I have a dirty mind, whatever.
No, I'm just saying.
And maybe because I watched Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid. Who knows? It is what it is. Miss Yvonne is one of those characters that, she is... I wouldn't say she's really there to be the romantic interest because it's kind
Not
of
for
like
Pee-wee.
She's kind of
no.
She's a tragic character, okay? Because the way I look at her as an adult right now, I look at her as a woman who is perpetually horny in a world where sex does not exist.
Yeah, poor lady stuck in Puppet Land.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to watch sometimes, but whatever.
Well, but she's just there to hang out with Pee-wee and make her little jokes, and who knows? I mean, she gets some people to come home with her after the case. I think, dude, she and Cowboy Curtis had to hook up.
There had to be
point,
at least one time where she left the Playhouse on the arm of some dude. I don't know, maybe to insinuate they left.
I guarantee you she did.
But at the end of the day, she is the character for little girls to look up to. She's the princess, Disney princess.
She's the princess, but she's the princess who hangs out with gay guys and drag queens. Yeah, she's the kind of princess I would have wanted to be.
Exactly. She's the type of princess that women today want to be.
Hell yeah!
And
fuck yeah!
for all of it, she is she's into glamour and she's into makeup and being girly and stuff like that. Like she really kind of is an icon of like drag in general. I mean,
sure. But also feminism in the right way. And I mean that in like we watched an episode today. Again, when I say we watched it today, it's the most recent time we watched it. But just for example, she and Pee-wee were playing who was the secretary and who was the boss. Right. And he was like, oh, Miss Yvonne, I'll be the boss. You're a girl. Girls can't be bosses. They're supposed to be secretaries. And she immediately was like, no, Pee-wee. Girls can be bosses and boys can be secretaries. Right. It's that kind of shit that was taught to us at a very early age.
Shit's all topsy-turvy now.
That's right. Get with the times, Pee-wee. But, and of course, his role was to be like, and hers was to be like, no, but it all was from a place of this show was so important. And I really do think that it was instrumental in our generation in the way we grew up, whether we were aware of it or not. Because when it comes to inclusivity, when it comes to a term that I hear a lot nowadays is a queer normative world, whether it's race, color, sexuality, gender identity, whatever the fuck it is, it was all extremely normalized. It was very intentionally included and never commented on.
Yeah, it was never mentioned,
it just
brought up.
Was.
You're right. Exactly.
And it was wonderful, and we all wanted to fucking be there.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about a show that, and you know, Paul Reubens even goes into this in the documentary with the scene where he's dancing in heels. Like, you just didn't even think about it. You know?
It's a fever.
Right. And when I was a kid, like, I didn't know what gay was or any of that. Right. And so to me, this was just normal in the world of Puppet Land, right?
Well, yeah. And he had said, like, one of his reasons for wanting to do the show and why he took it so seriously, because he did, is to teach kids that to go against the normal. Like, you don't have to be what society says you should be. Be what you are, and it's going to be fucking awesome.
Right.
And I'm, again, paraphrasing. He didn't curse like, nearly as much as
you never know. Like, when you are, for lack of a better term, when you are preaching to an audience of kids about anything when it comes to culture of any kind, you have to understand that you don't know exactly what this audience is going through. Like, there are kids out there that were putting their mom's clothes on. They didn't know why. They just did, and they thought it was funny or whatever. And maybe some continued to do it and then found out something about themselves or whatever. But like, to see Pee-wee dancing in high heels in that moment, if you were one of those kids that was doing that, like, it didn't feel weird.
Well, yes. And even in a slightly different thing, you know, Reba the mailman, or mail woman, whatever.
Right.
You know, she went on to many other things, but she's black. She's a black woman. And she said at the time when she was offered the role that she took it because she wasn't used to seeing anyone that looked like her represented in kids media. When it goes to Captain Kangaroo, Howdy Doody, like we talked about before, you know, so it was intentionally done, but never commented on, made normal. And so we all grew up not thinking anything of it.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and aside from, you know, doing inclusivity correct, if you ask me.
I think so.
You know,
it wasn't performative, it was natural, and it just was.
The format of the show itself, while it was an extremely chaotic show.
Intentionally, yeah.
Watching it as an adult, you can kind of see where it was very well orchestrated.
Right. Yeah.
It had a formula.
There were still, I was going to say, there's still beats. There's the word of the day.
Right.
You know, there's all these different things
that you hit. It definitely had
hit.
beats. It had recurring characters because for a kid's show that ran, you know, minus commercials, each episode's like 21 to 24 minutes long.
Sure.
And they don't feel that long at all. When you watch these things without commercials, they feel like they go by in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because of just the chaoticness of it. And really just how kind of engaged with it you really are, whether you're a kid or an adult. But yes, you see all the beats and how well crafted and orchestrated this is. And that really does speak to, you know, Paul Reubens' part of the writing and the control that he had on the show and being kind of a control freak in his own right.
A lot of the best creatives are. Sorry, not sorry.
Sure.
It's true.
You know, this had lots of things, like you had mentioned, you know, they always open the show with the word of the day, the secret word. And when anybody says this word, you scream.
Scream real loud.
I was one of those kids. I was in my living room screaming my fucking head off. Aside from that, you definitely had characters that would show up to do their bit, right? King of Cartoons is one of them.
Yeah, the King of Cartoons.
He would show up, maybe do like a 30-minute back and forth with Pee-wee, and then now let the cartoon begin.
30 seconds.
Yeah, whatever. And then they would show like a clip of a cartoon that was clearly in the public domain.
Yeah. Max Fleischer, is that the guy's name?
Some of them were, I believe, Max Fleischer cartoons. Some of them were.
It's that rubber tube style.
Right. We're talking about like 30s,
that
40s.
Honestly really kind of creeps me out for reasons I don't fully understand.
Yeah, anything that would have been old enough to be public domain by the 80s.
Penny was another one
that
came up.
Penny was one that would come in, and you know, Penny's a good example of how well that they put their all into this show, because there's a lot of claymation work in this series, and anybody who's ever attempted to do something like this, that is a huge pain in the ass. It is time consuming, it can be expensive. And at the end of the day, if it's not done correctly, it just looks like garbage anyway. So you had, you know, claymation elements, even with the intro of the show, like the first half of the intro, because the intro of this is, what is it, like almost 2.5 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's a long intro.
Well, we talked about before we started recording how it's a 2-act structure.
Yes.
Just the intro.
The very first part of it is all done in claymation.
And the music is very zen. Pee-wee.
Yes. And it's amazing, and it looks great even today.
Yeah.
You also had Penny, which I mentioned was claymation.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Dinosaur Family that lived in the mouse hole in his wall. They were done with claymation. All of the vegetables and the meats and stuff in the fridge, in the ice box, those were done with claymation. There's a lot going into this. Not only animation, claymation, live action, puppeteering.
Yeah.
And not only just puppeteering puppets, but also parts of the set.
Sure.
You know, Mr. Window, he's part of the set, but he's a puppet. Floory is a puppet, but he's part of the set.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about things that are built into the set itself.
I see. It's like Clocky moving and talking and all of that.
Yes, Clocky's another example. You know, he's the clock on the wall, shaped like the United States, and you know,
yellow plaid almost looking guy.
Yeah. I like Clocky a lot. You know, obviously Conky's my favorite. Okay, let's do that. Favorite character? Who's your favorite?
It depends. I don't know. You don't like Cterri very much. I liked Cterri.
I don't hate Cterri.
I like Cterri.
I don't like Randy.
Well, you're not supposed to. That's the point of him. He says and does all the shitty things that kids do that you figure out, oh, maybe I shouldn't say or do these things. He's the one smoking. He's the one being super fucking rude.
Yes, there is an episode where he is literally smoking a cigarette and asks Pee-wee if he wants a drag.
He is the bully type character that's there so you know to not be that.
Right.
I liked Cterri a lot. Conky obviously is fun, but I would never take him away from you.
Yeah. I mean, Conky is just a delight.
I like the more like really offbeat ones. Like I really like the ant farm for whatever reason, and that only comes up every so often.
There's one character on this show that I also absolutely adore, and I did when I was a kid, not as much as Conky, but I really don't think this character is...
Is it a puppet or is it a person?
It's a puppet.
Oh, okay.
But because
I really like Jambi a lot. This puppet is not
utilized nearly as much.
I really like Jambi a lot.
Jambi is great.
He's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love him.
But I am talking about the wolf chair.
I love the fucking wolf chair. He's almost never seen.
He's in every episode. He's next to Chairry.
But he never had. No, I loved him.
They rarely ever address this character.
No,
and it
that's
really pisses
true.
me off.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea.
This is some.
But that is the coolest looking chair ever. When I was a kid,
Correct.
I wanted one.
100%.
I would have taken a wolf chair over Chairry.
Absolutely. Like, no offense to Chairry.
No, Cherry's great, but.
But yes, he was arguably way fucking cooler. He had the nose, he had the eyes, he had the tongue. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He was awesome.
Never really utilized him. He's not even part of the play set.
I know. No, I got so excited because, to be completely honest, I forgot about him until you said him.
Exactly.
I loved that guy.
Yep.
Arguably far cooler.
And I will, no pun intended, I'm giving a shout out to Shout Factory. Because the Blu-ray box set they just put out at Pee-wee's Playhouse, it comes with an enamel pen set, and the wolf chair is one of the enamel pens. And I really appreciate that.
Nice. Yes, hell yeah.
Clocky, great character.
Sure.
Globey,
He had his uses. He would occasionally rotate and point at a part of himself.
Yeah, he creeped me out as a kid.
Really?
Yeah, he did. I don't know what it was about him.
Interesting.
I think it was his movements, maybe.
Oh.
I have no idea, but he creeped me out as a kid.
Huh. I did like Floory because he was fucking weird.
Yeah.
He was creepy, but I liked him.
I like the Puppet Land Band.
The Chicky Baby.
I think Chicky Baby is probably my favorite out of them.
Yeah,
she was the coolest out of all three.
Yeah.
Dirty Dog and...
Cool Cat.
Cool Cat. Yeah.
I got you. Come on, just sing the theme song in your head. They're all
I know, right? Just run that through your head for 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of characters in this show that aren't even human that you can really relate to. Like another least favorite of mine was the Cowntess, the cow that shows up.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's like a cow that shows up in the window occasionally and talks to Pee-wee, but I could do without that.
Well, I mean, I think that is kind of a thing with kids, though. A lot of kids shows or kids movies. Especially with our generation, and when it comes to puppet work and stuff, we've talked about Jim Henson and whatnot on many episodes and how we kind of grew up with cool fucking puppets. And it didn't really occur to me or matter to me one way or the other if something was human or not.
Right.
I still wanted to be friends with all kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, so that
yeah, I mean, we come from a generation where like a lot of sexual awakenings were happening based around cartoons and puppets and shit.
Gonna go there at all. But
no, I'm just saying, like it's on that level of we
Conky
just kind of
really
saw them
as
we just kind of saw them as equals, you know, especially if they were on a television show, because to a kid, it's not a puppet, it's not a cartoon.
Well, you play with your toys all the fucking time and pretend they're alive. These are just ones that are a little better at it than you are.
Right.
You know,
but.
Sexual awakenings notwithstanding.
You know what I mean?
No, I don't. So we've talked a bit about the show. What about Pee-wee's Big Adventure? That was a huge thing as well.
Yeah, well, what might surprise you is as much as a fan of Pee-wee's Playhouse that I was, Pee-wee's Big Adventure took a while to grow on me. I did have it on VHS when I was a kid because, of course, I did. It had Pee-wee Herman on it. I don't know. I just preferred the show to the movie. Now it's kind of equal parts, but even watching it today, like... Literally
today. We watched it earlier today.
I still think it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. And it's fun to watch, but I don't think and I don't think it was intentionally supposed to be, but it's not a representation of Pee-wee's Playhouse, right?
Right.
And then there was this sequel, I guess, if you want to call it, Big Top Pee-wee, that really kind of felt hollow when it came to there's just not enough Pee-wee personality in it.
Yeah. Well, and again, the documentary goes into very much why that was made in a lot of ways. Yeah. And part of it was of Paul Reubens' own making, because he did try so hard to keep the personas of Pee-wee Herman and Paul Reubens separate that a lot of people had no idea that he was Paul Reubens. So didn't realize he wrote and had such an instrumental hand on Pee-wee's Big Adventure and gave Tim Burton all of the credit, whereas Paul felt, and I understand.
I don't know that, So Big Top Pee-wee was him trying to come back, and it goes back to his childhood in Sarasota, Florida, and all of his circus things, and but also as a kid, I wasn't really big on circus things. I'm not going into it, but there's a reason.
I wasn't going to say anything.
But yeah. For some reason, Big Top Pee-wee is one that I always skipped as a kid.
To this day, I am sorry I've never seen it.
There were times
I haven't seen it. We didn't watch it.
There were times in the 90s where both of those movies would occasionally come on TV. And when Pee-wee's Big Adventure would come on TV, I would watch it. Mm-hmm. Big Top Pee-wee, I would usually just watch something else or go outside. But yeah, Big Top Pee-wee is not my favorite Pee-wee Herman performance, if you will. And I don't think that Paul Reubens necessarily had anything to...
I don't
think it was because of Paul Reubens. I think it was just because of the lack of Pee-wee personality.
Well, I think that when it came to Big Top Pee-wee, and this is just my supposition, it felt like he had something to prove to himself. And I felt like after watching the documentary and all of this, it really felt like he was always of very much two minds over. He knew that being openly gay or openly bi or whatever it is, was not okay. And so along with that kept all of Paul Reubens tapped down, right? So Pee-wee was the star, but at the same point, but that's me. Like, it's my alter ego, but I want it too, but I have put in so much work, but he's the one who did it to himself. Like it's a really hard, there's no good answer.
Well, no, and
and I think that Big Top Pee-wee was him trying to gain some of that for himself, but it didn't come across the same for whatever reason. It didn't hit the same, and I don't think it's his fault necessarily. It's just,
not at all. I just think that
something was bound to eventually fail a little bit when it comes to the magic of Pee-wee Herman, and that's what everybody said when the movie came out: it's missing the magic.
And I mean,
but how do you quantify that? Like, oof.
With that being said, also, when the newer Netflix movie, I forget what it's called, but we watched that. I've only seen it once, and I'm glad I watched it. But at the end of the day, it's another one of those things where, to me, Pee Wee Herman as the character exists in a very specific point in time.
Right.
And when you 30 years later try to reboot that, bring it back or whatever, it's kind of like when we watched the Bill and Ted 3, where
listen,
I don't want to watch these characters in their 50s or 60s still playing these roles. I don't.
I liked the end of Bill and Ted 3.
It was fine. It was fun enough, but at the end of the day, it's like I don't want to use the word pathetic. I don't. I don't look at it as pathetic, but there is some level of cringe to it that I just don't. I don't want to watch these characters 30 years later playing these characters again. Like I said, to me, Pee Wee Herman is a very specific time and place.
I understand.
And there's enough of it there to keep me satisfied the rest of my life.
Right.
We also watched the Broadway Pee Wee's Playhouse, which I didn't.
You see, I liked it.
No. I didn't have that same feeling that I did with the Netflix movie. I actually really enjoyed the Broadway thing. It kind of gave me the same feeling as I did as a kid watching Pee Wee's Playhouse pretty much do a new episode. That's the way I looked at it. Yeah. This was just like a hour, whatever.
It was almost like minutes. A long lost episode.
Right.
But everyone's older.
Yes. And some people didn't come back. And I understand why.
Yeah. It was wonderful though. It really was like a meeting with old friends again. Like in a lot of ways, I really did enjoy that.
Most importantly, Conky was done right.
Most importantly.
Yes, most
Pee-wee, take him or leave him. Conky, again, done correctly.
Pee-wee Herman was never the reason I tuned into Pee-wee's Playhouse as a kid.
Pee-wee, though.
He was the vessel that brought you into the Playhouse. The Playhouse is what I wanted to see.
Well, I liked him.
This had to have had some kind of impact on me artistically as a kid.
Sure.
There's no way it didn't. And I've heard that from a lot of people my age that say like, yeah, Pee-wee's Playhouse was like, I'm an artist now, and I was heavily influenced by this show.
Sure.
And it probably has something to do with the fact that they got actual artists to do the sets.
Well, and artists who came from the punk scene, who came from the drag scene, who came from all these different offshoots of counterculture.
Yep.
Gay, straight,
outsider
what the
art.
fuck ever, anything in between, coming together to make this thing that everyone believed in, and it was just off kilter enough to be fucking perfect.
Right. And I mean, outsider art was like really gaining traction in the 80s. By the 90s, it was just kind of accepted as art. And today it's like all art is anymore. But yeah, this is definitely like one of the roots of like, my generation having aspirations to do artwork. I'm sure there were other shows in this same kind of vein that probably had some kind of an impact too. But I think at least for me, Pee Wee Herman was one of them. Dr. Seuss was one of them. I can't really say Sesame Street because I never really wanted to be a puppeteer or make puppets or anything like that.
Right.
I was always like, the paint and pen and paper and that type of artist until I got into collaging later on in life. And
I remember.
Became a fine artist, an award-winning fine artist.
That is true. You are an award-winning fine artist. You had a showing at a gallery and all kinds of shit.
Oh, yeah.
I was there.
But, would any of that... And
I was so proud of you. My grandparents were there and they were so proud of you.
Yes. Would any of that have happened to me in my life had I not watched Pee Wee's Playhouse? Maybe. But I don't know for sure because, there were two things that really defined my childhood for me, and it was Pee Wee's Playhouse and Ninja Turtles. And I know Ninja Turtles didn't inspire me to be an artist at all. And aside from the fact that they were all named after artists.
Where inspiration comes from. It's it's like Pee Wee's Playhouse itself is a collection of not just Paul Rubens, but the set design and all of that type of thing was very much his intention on collecting things throughout his life. That he drew inspiration from all kinds of different things. And he wanted to inspire and show kids that being different or weird or whatever is totally fine and totally cool. And all these different kinds of people and puppets and everything can get along and work through problems and all of that. So who's to say how much... You never really know how deeply something influences you. Really? Because it's on a subliminal level from when you were a kid.
Well, even like...
But
when it comes to, like the decorating of the places that we've lived, which I've done many times. Like I'll go.
Oh no, I always just go, Chad, you do it.
I will decorate the house. I don't care. And whenever I put
you are
things
the one
up,
that does it. Yep.
I think that there is a subconscious part of my brain that is like, how would Pee-wee's Playhouse do this? How would this be arranged in Pee-wee's Playhouse?
You make our house sound a lot more exciting.
No. Especially this one. We just moved in here and we haven't really even done anything with it. But yeah, the studio that I'm trying my hardest
on it.
to design, like there's
You've
definitely
only
going to be
it totally a couple of times.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be influences by Pee-wee's Playhouse in that. There just is. I mean, I don't see how I can avoid it. This show was highly influential to me and my generation.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that a lot of us, our age, even older, because again, it wasn't just kids watching Pee-wee's Playhouse. I think that subliminally or otherwise, it did teach us to be more inclusive, be kinder, more accepting. I think that the gay stuff, if you want to call it that, is overt to us now as adults, but wasn't then, nor was it made with any kind of ill intent or anything. It was from acceptance.
Yeah.
And I do think that things like Pee-wee's Playhouse were instrumental in building our generation's acceptance of different kinds of people, of different kinds of sexuality, of all of these things that really do. It has never mattered to me who the fuck someone wants to sleep with. That doesn't factor into whether I like you or not as a person.
No, and shows like Pee-wee's Playhouse, look, this show was never going to turn somebody gay. It may have given them the courage to be who they are.
Right.
There's a big difference.
I think at a very, I would say subtle level. It's not subtle looking at it as an adult through 20/25 eyes, but it said, I like you exactly as you are, whoever the fuck you are. As long as you're not an asshole, Randy.
Yeah.
You know?
I just don't really care.
I think that more of that is needed today. Everybody gets so up in arms about labels and inclusivity and all of that shit. And man, they were doing it right 35 plus years ago. It didn't need to be commented on. It didn't need to be your defining feature. You were just who you were.
Right.
And that was enough. And we love you anyways. I mean, except for the fruit salad. I can't get over Pee-wee marrying his fruit salad. That is a line too far. But it is funny.
Yeah. I mean,
but that stems from the joke. And that was something I did want to talk to you about. I truthfully don't know. Because there's several little sayings. I don't know. I kind of think they probably didn't come up with it. But I don't remember it being around beforehand. Things like, you love it? Well, why don't you marry it? I know you are, but what am I? Right. That type of shit that was so
I'm rubber,
pervasive.
You're glue.
Yes.
Shit that
it was so pervasive. But I really think Pee-wee's the first one I ever heard saying any of that.
Yeah. At least on TV.
I don't know that he came up with it. He probably didn't. But at least for me and everybody I knew, it's all these little childhood things, again, that come back.
No, I mean, it does. It speaks to our generation for sure. I mean, it all the callbacks that it does, the terminology, catchphrases, things like that get thrown out there. They really do speak to like a primal part of our generation's soul.
Yes.
It's like the little like pointy S thing that we all used to draw.
Oh my God, the super S. Okay, but please don't get me started. I went down a whole YouTube rabbit hole on essays about the S, and apparently it's been around since my mom's time, like in the 60s it was found in schools. No one fucking knows where it came from. Yeah. It's been seen across the world, like many countries.
Yeah, for some reason, we just thought it was the coolest fucking thing to draw.
Okay, because it was. Okay, and you could make many of them together and make a long chain down the side of your notebook paper.
You could do a lot with it.
And it was fucking epic.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's that, for our generation, if we were to see something like that now visually, it just like touches our soul in a way that Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of does the same,
Yes.
There's a lot to it that just kind of it's not only that it reminds me of childhood because, you know, in a way it does, but I also watched this as an adult. Like,
I know. You actively put it on.
I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of watching Pee-wee's Playhouse.
No.
I don't care how old I am. If I'm 80 years old and it's on TV, I'll watch it. Like, there's just something to it that is just, it captures my attention in a way that a lot of things don't. I
know you like the Playhouse. I think the character of Pee Wee Herman, though, he is so enigmatic in a lot of ways. He has several tendencies and features that are diametrically opposed to each other. It's like I said before, it's the whole innocence versus shithead. I didn't say it exactly like that, but he could be an absolute shithead.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it turns on a dime. But that's kids. And, you know, but then I think of like Pee-wee's Big Adventure when he tries to act all like I'm a rebel Dottie. Like that whole, you know, like, yeah, you don't even know. Like things you can't know, things you couldn't know, things you shouldn't know. Things you shouldn't know. It's like,
yeah, they call back to that. And later on with another character in that movie, which, you know, the movie in and of itself, like I said, it's not a good representation of Pee-wee's Playhouse. I don't think it's supposed to be.
No, but it is of Pee-wee the character. It gives more insight into him as a character, like more full-rounded, maybe when he's not at the Playhouse.
Right. If all you've seen is Pee-wee's Big Adventure and you're thinking like, oh, I want more of this, I'm going to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse. No.
It's a totally different thing.
Completely different experience.
It really is, yeah.
And even the stage shows, the one from the early 80s before the
Groundlings
the show, or the Broadway show, both of those are not in the same vein
but
at all as Pee-wee's Big Adventure or Big Top Pee-wee. The movies are just kind of ancillary to the character.
In a way, these are all just different fantasies or dreams maybe Pee-wee had.
Well, the way I looked at it,
and one is the dream, one is the Playhouse, and one's his Big Adventure, and one is this. You know,
that's kind of how I looked at it when I was a kid. Was like. This is what Pee-wee is doing when he's not going to his Playhouse. He's having his big adventure.
He's having his big adventure.
He's having a circus time, whatever. You know, this is Pee-wee in the normal world and before he goes to his Playhouse.
Yeah.
That's how I always saw it. It's the same character in the two separate worlds that he inhabits.
I will say every single time I have ever heard the Tequila song, I think of him doing his dance.
You can't not. He is.
You can't see me podcast because we don't have fucking video yet.
He has
but I'm doing a really shitty version
as
of
like
it.
his own. Yes.
In his fucking platform shoes.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, for all that Pee-wee's Big Adventures, whatever. I mean, like there's little characters in that movie that people still relate to and love to this day, like Large Marge.
I was gonna say the fucking tell him Large Marge sent you.
Yeah, she is in that movie for all of maybe a minute.
She's not in there very much, yeah.
And she left a pretty big impact.
Yes. Not just for the jump scare, but just like in general. One
of the only things I really remember from Big Top Pee-wee, aside from his pig, he had a pet pig that followed him around or whatever. He had he created a tree that grew sausages or like hot dog weenies.
Oh.
He had plants that grew those for some reason. I don't know. Anyways, that's a...
See, and that made me think of an old Raggedy Ann and Andy book that my grandma had where they had like bushes that had ice cream cones and others with like hot dogs on them and shit.
Well, I would not be at all surprised if Paul Rubens himself wasn't inspired by that to do something similar.
Oh yeah, because that shit's from like when my mom was little. So,
right.
And Paul Rubens was 9 years older than my mom.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, watching Pee-wee's Playhouse, you could tell that there were, you know, lots of inspiration from other kid shows that came well before this.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes it so wonderful is, again, it is out of time and a collection of so many things that it couldn't be replicated.
Yeah.
And shouldn't be.
The show was not only like a time capsule.
It wouldn't be. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be.
It's not only a time capsule for, you know, a decade of television, let's say, like in the pop culture vernacular, right? It's also like a living museum.
Yes.
Like this thing, it's a museum to me. Like it is a piece of art. Like I would love if somebody would recreate this and just have it be a place you could go.
Oh my God.
And pay $50 to walk around.
I would pay so much more than $50.
It would be a great experience to be able to be in the Playhouse, even if it is a replica of it.
Yeah. Well, and that is a cool thing about the documentary is the performance art background of so many of the people that went into creating this, because it wasn't Paul Reubens alone who created this at all.
No.
You know, and the various types of artistic performers, you know, all the weirdos, and a lot of them were queer in different ways, you know, coming together from these different backgrounds to create this thing that really was a moment in time and yet out of time. It's extremely special. It can't be replicated.
No, I don't think they should even try. I mean, this is, again, this entire series should annoy the shit out of me as a person today. As the adult that I have grown into. And all of my, like, ticks and things that piss me off.
Gee, what are those?
Specifically about celebrities and characters they create and things like that. This really should not still work for me. So something I did before we started recording, I put out on social media that we were going to be recording today. You know, send a message out. Hey, if anybody has something they want to say, if they want to ask us a question, if they want to comment, our topic is Pee-wee's Playhouse. We actually got a response. I'm kind of surprised because I didn't really expect anything to come out of this from Cara Jean. And she wanted to comment that said, I love seeing the documentary. She's talking about the HBO 2-part series on Paul Reubens. I love seeing the documentary and giving Paul Reubens a chance to show a side of him that we never got to see. But even with him keeping part of himself hidden, he was a trailblazer and provided a safe place to be yourself for all of children and adults with Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yes.
I 100% agree. Pee-wee's Playhouse was definitely one of those things that, like, it was be yourself. Be yourself. Because nobody in the world but Paul Reubens could go out into public in that time and be Pee-wee Herman.
Right.
That took a lot of guts. That took a lot of guts to do.
Yes.
To be this obnoxious man-child character out in public. But he did it. I mean, he did interviews on talk shows. He did man on the street things. Every time you saw this man, he was in character.
Yes.
At premieres for his movies.
On David Letterman a lot.
Yes.
Which, until we saw the documentary, I didn't watch David
and
Letterman,
why?
So I didn't know that.
I never wanted to be Pee-wee Herman. Like, I didn't really look up to him as, like, a cool character.
Oh, I liked him.
I didn't think he was all that cool. I just didn't. I thought I liked him. I thought he was a great fit for the show and everything. But, like, as far as wanting to emulate that, it wasn't for me. But, you know, it did kind of allow people to see, like, well, maybe I'm not that, but I'm this, and I can go out there and I can be that comfortably because, you know, a lot of kids looked up to Pee-wee and thought if he could do it, so can I. All right, and we got another one here from Trey Broadway. It says, hey there, pretty little podcasters. Hey there to you.
Hi, Trey.
I had hopes this would come under discussion at some point. Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be a little hard to avoid Pee-wee on a pop culture podcast.
Right.
It said, this for me is the quintessential children's show, period. The variety it offered was phenomenal. As a latchkey kid in the early 90s, Playhouse inspired me to open that fridge and explore. I'm sure you will discuss who were your favorite characters, segments. Still trying to convince my wife we need a Chairry. First of all, yes, you do need a Chairry. In fact, buy 2, because at some point it's going to get old and you're going to need to replace it.
One in the wolf chair.
Yeah, just avoid the pain in the ass.
And a wheelchair.
He likes Chairry, so.
But as a wife, I'm agreeing.
Okay. Yeah, just avoid the pain in the ass hassle later on. Get wife. 2 of them. That way, if it needs to be replaced, you got another.
Rotate it out, man. Never be without a Chairry.
Yeah. It is interesting that he brought up the refrigerator because, yes, there is a segment involving the fridge because there's a snack time part of the show.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where, you know, Pee-wee's Playhouse, when I first started watching this, I was probably 5 years old. Mm-hmm. So the imagination of a child is that. Like, what is my food doing when I close the fridge?
Sure.
What are my toys doing when I'm not
I think we
looking?
all like tried to like have the light on, you know, like peek in and stuff like that when you're trying to shut the fridge door.
Yeah,
and it goes out. You're like,
trying to figure out what the hell's going on in there. And I mean, it's shows like Pee-wee's Playhouse that kind of, you know,
absolutely.
produce that rational way of thinking for a child of the magic behind your toys or the food in the fridge or any of those things. So yeah, thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Trey. We actually do have another comment as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah, from Shield Maiden Leah, and her comment is just, how about how thick that sexual tension was between Pee Wee and Miss Yvonne?
All right. I don't think that was ever reciprocated. I think Pee Wee thought he was in love with her. I think he thought he should be because she's the most beautiful woman in Puppet Land, right?
Right.
And I think that was as far as it went. I think Miss Yvonne was like, you got some things to figure it out about yourself before you can claim to be interested in me.
Right.
Because she would flirt with everyone on the show but Pee Wee.
Yeah.
She flirted with him a couple of times. There was one in particular where he was being the judge of something and she was trying to sway his vote. So she was flirting with him or whatever.
Right.
But she was never into Pee Wee like she was a fireman or Cowboy Curtis.
Well, yeah, and that was another thing that Shield Maiden Leah brought up is how Cowboy Curtis clearly was enjoying his time away from the Matrix.
Yeah. Yes, Lawrence Fishburne, of all people, played Cowboy Curtis, which they explain in the documentary how this came about, but I still don't know how exactly it happened. Because it seemed to me like Lawrence Fishburne, he said he went to a premiere of the Pee Wee Herman show. He
saw it like when it was still at the Groundlings.
Right.
And he didn't understand what the fuck was going on. This guy was throwing
didn't understand it at all. And then next thing he knows, he's getting a phone call from Paul Rubens to be on the show.
Yeah, Paul Rubens was like, I want him.
So there you have it, folks. Morpheus himself plays Cowboy Curtis.
Yeah, he does.
You know, Phil Hartman, he was in this.
He was instrumental in a lot of ways. We won't go into a whole lot of that, but he wrote. He was very instrumental in coming up with a lot of the Pee-wee's Playhouse stuff. He was with the Groundlings at the same time, and it was very instrumental in a lot of that. Yeah,
it's kind of amazing how you don't. With my experience, you don't really see this anymore because it used to be right. You started an improv group, especially if you were in New York in the 70s and 80s,
Chicago, and
even Canada.
I was going to say, was it Toronto? I can't remember where like the SCTV people.
Right.
But I'm sorry, Canada.
That kind of was like, at least if you were some kind of comedian, that is where you got your start. You would start an improv group.
Sure.
And then you would try out for different things such as Saturday Night Live or SCTV, things like that. And that's how you would get noticed. So you don't really see that very often anymore. The last like modern take on that I can think of would possibly be Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah. There is that, I can't think of what it's called in California, that a lot of people like Jason Mantzoukas came from.
Oh,
and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, they exist.
And
they
then
do.
also, who was it? Was it the Upright Citizens Brigade?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Because we're going to a concert tomorrow night. We're going to go see Ninja Sex Party. And Dan Avedon was part of that back in the day. Yeah. Improv group and all of that. Anyways.
I mean, even with like, Kids in the Hall and The Whitest Kid You Know.
Hell yeah.
There were still troops like that in modern times doing this thing. But like, I don't really see like... I am so far detached from whatever celebrities are popular right now. I don't know how any of these people get their start.
I don't know either.
I look up and I'm like...
It could be a vibrant, rampant improv community, and I just have no fucking idea.
Every time I look up, there's a new scandal involving some actor I've never heard of, and I'm just like, where the fuck did they come from? How did this happen? But yeah, I mean, it used to be that like, it was this... really underground thing that you did, and then that was your roots, and you went from there and you just moved up if you did, and you faded into obscurity if you didn't, became a waiter, whatever, You know, it went on about your life.
Well, it was really cool about those improv groups is going back and looking and going, even if it is character people, like the Groundlings is one where one of the ladies, and I'm so sorry, guys, who was in that original Pee-wee show before the Playhouse was like the secretary in Ferris Bueller. She's like that, you know, there's all these people who are like, oh, I know them. I've seen them.
Yeah.
You know,
and a lot of times, oh, wow, they're famous or they're dead. So take that for what you will. But, you know, time does move on.
It does. You know, it really does. Way to bring it down right at the end here, Chad. Well, but I will say, keeping with the suddenly melancholy theme, I hope that whatever was waiting for him at the end, blah, blah, blah. I hope that now, at least, Paul Reubens knows how beloved he was and is by so many people.
I think he did. I mean, he had tons of fans.
Well, but he felt the need to make this documentary to set the record straight, and all of that. And at least for me, baby, you never needed to explain anything.
No.
I was glad to finally meet you right at the end there, but I loved you my whole life.
If you want my personal opinion on why this documentary exists, I think that it was just him wanting to show the world Paul Reubens, because he was always
fighting against that. He knew why he needed to, and it was the right choice. But at the same time,
always overshadowed by the Pee Wee Herman character. Oh my God, yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, he intentionally did that.
He did, but still, damn, that doesn't make it easier.
It had to have been hard, you know. Like he says in the documentary with Pee Wee's Big Adventure, when it came out, Pee Wee Herman was credited as a writer, or Paul Reubens, right?
Yes, Pee Wee Herman played himself in the credits, and Paul Reubens was credited as a writer, but no one knew who the fuck Paul Reubens was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was a moment in his life where he was just like, wait a minute. How the hell am I supposed to get credit for things that I do artistically if they think that it's Pee Wee Herman doing this?
Because the world loves Pee Wee Herman, but that he was still a man. Paul Reubens was still a person in and of himself, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, it must have been hard at times to have this. Well,
and to have to tamp down the sexuality and all of that shit.
Well, at least in Paul Reubens' case, it was intentional.
It was.
I've seen many celebrities out there that they play a character and they can't escape it.
Sure.
It didn't seem like he wanted to escape the Pee Wee Herman character. I think he had just as much love for Pee Wee Herman as he did anything.
Be himself and other people too.
Right. He had a deep love of this character. You could tell. For all that it was a shot in the dark character that he came up with pretty much on the spot, you know, which a lot of successful characters come out of that.
Sure.
But it seems to me like the Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is usually the correct one. Mm-hmm. When you create a character like this and the public embraces it so wholeheartedly that you just get sick of fucking doing it. And everywhere you go, they're like, say the thing, do the dance.
It was just Bart
dance,
Simpson
monkey.
again.
Well, I'm here. I own you.
No, it's the Bart Simpson, I didn't do it, boy.
Yes, exactly. Time after time, you see celebrities that come up with characters that the audience just can't let go of.
Sure.
And they have moved on.
Yeah.
And they just can't escape the living hell that is this thing they created, consuming them decades and decades later. And at least in Paul Reubens' case, it does feel like he loved it.
Yeah, I don't think he ever hated Pee-wee. I think he wanted Pee-wee to share the spotlight. I think that given the world he lived in when Pee-wee became a thing and when Pee-wee was such a big thing, that wasn't really practical. And that makes me sad.
Yeah. And it was great.
He didn't ever seem to resent Pee-wee, really.
No.
For his
I don't
fame.
ever think he
just
did.
Wanted a piece of it himself.
Maybe here and there, maybe at times in his life,
sure.
he was like, God, I wish I had known. But whatever.
At
the end of the day, it was a good decision on his part. I don't think he regrets the decision ever. I don't think he's ever regretted being Pee Wee Herman.
No.
But, you know.
No, because it brought all the fame he wanted with it. And he was a creature that very much enjoyed that and liked famous people knowing who he was. He called himself a star fucker in the documentary. He's like, I was just like, all these famous people want to hang out with me. And I was like, tee-hee, so I get that. That's fine.
One of the greatest parts about this documentary to me, watching him just speak to the camera as Paul Reubens is seeing just how much of Paul Reubens is in the Pee-wee character. Yeah. Because, he was doing back and forth with the
Matt Wolf.
Yeah.
The guy who made the documentary with him.
He would ask him a question and he would just interrupt him. Or do like these little Pee-wee mannerisms and stuff.
He is someone who I feel like if I was at a different point in my life and all of that, he is someone who I could have been very good friends with. But also would have driven me up the fucking wall from time to time, which is what you really want out of a friend. I mean, at the end of the day, where you're just like, he is very much, he is going to do and say what he feels at the time.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to respect that as long as it's not directed at you.
Right.
Like I would want to be next to him while he's going at someone else.
Also, I wanted to just kudos to his parents.
Well, yeah. And again, in the document, his dad, like when he because I think his dad had some hesitancy at first, which is understandable, I suppose, at the time. His dad was a very get your dreams, macho kind of guy.
Yeah.
And had Paul Reubens as a son who he self-described as very sensitive, artistic type of person. But when he finally did come out to them, his dad wrote him a letter and was like, basically, again, paraphrasing, if you're homosexual, you go out there and you be the best homosexual you can be. And you could tell how much that touched him.
Right. Like I said, it all starts with the parents.
Yes, it does.
There's a difference between trying to sway your children to be one thing or another. But it's another thing that if they come up with their identity, who they are on their own, and just saying like, yeah, I love you. Just do your thing.
Yes, exactly.
And for his parents coming from the generation that they did, I mean, they easily could have made his life a living fucking hell. And if they had, we wouldn't have Pee Wee Herman.
No.
I don't think it would have happened. I think that behind the scenes, it was a lot of love coming from the parents that really helped Paul Reubens go out there and do what he did. And I think that should be commented on.
Yes. No. Thank you for bringing that up because he made a profound impact on a lot of us.
Yeah. And like you, I really hope that he did.
I hope he knows.
Get everything that
I'm not even going to get super emotional because I will. But I just, wherever you are, I hope you know. Like, I know you went through a lot of shit, man.
He's hanging out with David Lynch. That's what he's doing.
And David Bowie.
Man, there's a conversation.
Oh my God, there's a trilogy of terror right there. Oh my God.
At the end of the day, man, I hope he did everything he wanted to do. And his, I feel like he was taken too soon. He was not super old. He wasn't young.
No.
But
he
was
battled
in that
cancer for years.
Yeah, I mean, had it not been for cancer, maybe we could have got.
I do like that they do say at the end of the documentary he did find love and he was surrounded by friends and and all. He was not left alone at the end of his life.
No.
So.
And I mean, at the end of the day, that's what any of us can hope for.
Yes, the best send off you can hope for.
He went through this world being himself.
Yep.
Being a character. And just kind of playing by his own rules and working on his own terms and found a way to make that work for him in a way that so many can't.
Mm-hmm.
And
he left an indelible mark on a lot of us.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why people in their 40s today are still watching Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Hell yeah.
They're still watching Pee-wee's Big Adventure. We're still wearing Pee-wee Herman t-shirts. We're still collecting action figures.
You're still desperately wishing to find a full-size Conky.
Yeah, I would love to have a Conky in my house. I mean, it would be.
We would make room for. He would fit perfectly in that corner over there.
Not even owning one. If I could just go touch the actual
I just looked at one.
Conky that was on the show, wherever the hell he may be.
Yeah.
In my mind, he's out there making people happy.
Oh my goodness, giving out words of the day.
Yeah, dude. If I ever met Conky and he gave me a little word of the day ticket, that would be like my most treasured.
I was going to say, it would be your word of the day. Every
it.
single day, you would become immediately impossible to deal with.
Oh, that would be the word of my life.
I know, because every fucking day, you'd start screaming.
Yes.
Whatever the word.
And I would hold it up to your face.
Strike the fucking word from this household. It would never be mentioned again.
But I highly recommend any of you out there who haven't seen Pee-wee's Playhouse, it is all on Shout Factory's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You can go buy the DVDs and the Blu-rays. The Blu-ray set just came out recently. That looks fantastic. I may pick one up myself. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a great watch. All of these things are on HBO, with the exception of Big Top Pee-wee, and I don't know why. But there you have it. I mean, I'm sure you can find copies of that somewhere. But right now is like one of the best times to experience all that is Pee-wee Herman. You know, with this recent documentary, with the recent Blu-ray release of Pee-wee's Playhouse, with the fact that Paul Rubens, you know, passed away 2 years ago, but it's still recent enough that people are remembering him fondly. They're searching for him online. They're researching his career and rediscovering or discovering for the first time. You know,
I mean, I learned
all
so
of these
much
incredible
about
things that he did with this character.
It was wonderful.
And, you know, he will forever be like, he is a part of me in some way or another. You know, comes up time and time again. This character, this show that I used to watch as a kid that just never really left my attention span. It's been there for 30 plus years now.
Something strike a chord and just stay with you, man. Yeah.
So go out there and watch all the Pee-wee Herman shit you can. This is a good time to do it.
Hell yeah.
I guess we can call that an episode. Jess, where can people find you?
I'm Jess Moon. I am at JHL Moon on Instagram. You can also find me on Blue Sky. I do have an independent publishing house. It's called Shadow Spark Publishing. You can find us online, shadowsparkpub.com, at Shadow Spark Pub, pretty much anywhere there is social media. Probably one of my authors has set up an account. And I'm like, yes, please run this. You know, if whatever it is, any kind of nonfiction from, whatever it is, any kind of fiction from, you know, fantasy, horror, romance, poetry, science fiction, what have you. We've got stuff. We tend to have a release every month, at least one. So, you know, go take a look, check us out. And yeah, that's me. Chad, where can people find you?
I'm out there. I'm on Instagram at Chad J. Moon. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram as well at the Pretty Little Podcast. We are on Blue Sky now. I recently created a Blue Sky account. So you can search for the Pretty Little Podcast on Blue Sky and interact with us there. You can also check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/at the Pretty Little Podcast 69420. Bye.
Dramatic pause. Bye.